kids. My wife, Dr. Holly, over here, she's also a chiropractor. We practice together. And this is my daughter in the middle, Isabel. Isabel has Down syndrome. And like you said, potty training has been a blast. She's 5 years old. She's been potty training for 3 years as well. William is 2. He's been potty training for 6 months. So it's definitely a challenge in there. And so with Down syndrome, I know it's not the same as ASD, but at the same time, there's the challenges that come with special needs. You have the speech therapies, you have all the different therapies you're going to all the time, trying to keep up with the research. I mean, we're constantly buying new things when we find new research. Okay. Does everybody feel that way?
Yeah. I'm going to switch to me just to do it. Because it's a couple jumping lines.
Oh, we get to use it in our clinic too. But we're using it on her brain. I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. And because all this relates. So one thing I don't personally like to do is to talk about certain diseases, certain health issues, or certain problems. What I like to talk about is how do we become healthy and healing and functioning at a high level. Does that sound good? And that just brings us on all the same playing field. Okay? And so we've had our challenges with her, but it's been amazing. So the thing I want to start out today with is the first thing is for you guys as parents coming to this, I want to say thank you to you, not necessarily for myself, but thank you for your kids, thank you for just society in general, because this is a hard world, right? And the more information you get, the more education you get, the more you're going to be able to make a change, not only in your kid's life, but your life and your family's life. This is my cousins who I grew up with, Drew and Kirk. They're twins. They're born and diagnosed with ASD, as well as my cousin, as well as Fragile X. I don't know if you know what Fragile X is. My sister had Fragile X, has Fragile X as well. They're about 2 years younger than me, so they're about 40 now. And this is them when they were younger. Drew, or Kirk over here, has never been able to walk. I still got meningitis when he was born, and so he's never been able to walk. And so I grew up with them just thinking, with my aunt and uncle, doing everything they could to keep their kids going. They also have a non-neurotypical or neurotypical child as well. And they're both teachers for special need. My aunt goes around and teaches teachers how to teach kids with autism around the country and around the world. So I've had a lot of experience in this realm, but I'm not talking bringing them up to say, I've had experience with this. I'm bringing them up because of my aunt and uncle and what I saw them have to go through when they were when I was a kid. I remember getting in their car and it smelled like food, the bed smelled like pee. Like when I went to their house, I was always in my mind, like, why can't they keep their house clean? And as I got older, I realized, I don't even know how they made it through a day. And especially now with Isabel, I realize it is tough. So the other reason I bring this up is because it's so tough, we tend to, as parents, focus so much on what can we do for our child, what can we do for our kids, that we tend to put ourselves on the back burners. Can I get a thumbs up if you feel that way? Yeah, and I bring this picture up here, my uncle specifically, because he put himself on the back burner so long that he had depression, he started getting anxiety and depression, he started taking anti-anxiety and antidepressant medications. 5 years ago, he actually killed himself. And I don't say that to make anything other than this is a real thing. It's, yes, we want our kids to be amazing, we want them to have the highest potential to function, heal, do everything they need in life, but we have to also do that for ourselves, because I promise Kirk and Drew want him more than anything right now. Okay? So I bring him up for that reason. Just to say, like, everything I'm talking about today isn't just about your children. It's not just about our kids. It's about the human body. And so this is for all of us. Okay? So this is for all your kids and your family. All right, so let's dive into it. You've probably seen this 100 times, maybe even today, and we know that there's a crucial problem in our world today with healthcare. Okay? I call it sick care. I call it our sick care system. And I find my job is to boldly step out and try to make a shift in the sick care system. Okay? Because there's not a lot of health in our healthcare. Can I get a thumbs up if we're on the same page there? Okay, so we're there. So I'm not going to dig on that too deep, but to realize, okay, we have to think differently. We can't be thinking the way we've always been taught. We can't think the way our doctor told us to think, the way we grew up. Things are different and our paradigm has to shift. We have to go from over here to there's got to be a treatment, there's got to be a cure, there's got to be something we can take or give our child that's going to make them better. Okay? To over here, it's not about what we can take, what we can get. It's about how we get our child functioning at its highest level so they can experience the life they can commit to experience. You follow me? It's a paradigm shift. We don't need to just have a bunch of medication or supplements or treatments. We want to figure out how does their body work so we can work with it. Okay? So I want to, that paradigm shift, I have a story I want to start out with. It's a little bit different because this is a little girl named Zoe, and she's not on the autism spectrum. She was just diagnosed, unfortunately, with an autoimmune disease called juvenile arthritis. Okay? And you're going to understand how this all relates as we go through this. But she came into our clinic after her mom had been in for migraine headaches. We helped her mom with migraine headaches. Zoe had been diagnosed at age 6 with juvenile arthritis, and she went to the rheumatologist, and it's an inflammatory disease. So what do you think the doctor's thinking they need to do? The question is, how do we get rid of what? Inflammation, right? Which is a good question. So, you guys are all smart. How do we get rid of inflammation? What do you take? Small level you take NSAIDs, at a high level you take steroids, right? They put her on different steroids along with something called methotrexate. Has anybody heard of methotrexate? Hardcore, it's actually a chemotherapy drug at 6 years old. And they're just trying to help. They're trying to figure out how do we get the inflammation down. She was at an 18 on the scale, rheumatoid scale. They said if they get her to 11 in the next year, that's going to be success. Okay? And so her mom brought her in because when she did the methotrexate, she would throw up. And so you really couldn't make that happen. So she brought her in to try to figure out what we could do. And the thing that we do different, instead of saying how do we get rid of inflammation over here,
What's the problem?
boom. Why is her body stuck in an inflammatory response? So the question I want you guys to ask in your mind, why is my child's body stuck in an inflammatory response? Because at the end of the day, that's where it's at, okay? And so she's stuck in this inflammatory response. So then we have to investigate, right? Because there could be a lot of reasons why she's stuck in an inflammatory response. There's a lot of stressors out there, a lot of chemicals, a lot of different things in our life that can cause our body to go into an autoimmune response. So, first thing we do is we investigate. We do evaluations physically, exams, x-rays, everything we can do to figure out that aspect. We did a gut test, looked at her GI tract, what's there. Crazy amount of inflammation, 10's the highest, by the way. So she's a 9 out of 10 in gut inflammation. So, yes, we can give her steroids to lower inflammation, but what's creating the inflammation in her body? Something in her GI tract. Right? So we investigated, we started working with her eating plan, we started to change her diet around, things like dairy, huge. We started to do certain supplement protocols, we did chiropractic care, and in 4 months, she went back to a rheumatologist for her number to see where she was at. This is all, no methotrexate, she stopped that in the beginning. Not for me, just that's what they decided to do. Does anybody want to guess what number she was at in 4 months?
2.
Super optimistic, like as optimistic as you can get. She's at a 0. Right? And this is what's cool. She's at a 0. Her body's healed, right? But is her body cured?
No.
Did we treat juvenile arthritis?
No.
No. Did she take a pill for juvenile arthritis? No. What did we do? We got her body back in balance, and what did it do? It did heal itself. And that's what's going to only answer. We have to get our children's bodies back to healing themselves. And so she got to a point where she was at 0. But then she started first grade, and in first grade, stress goes high. I'm sorry, kindergarten. In kindergarten, they said, pretty stressful for a kid to go to kindergarten. And guess what happened? She started having knee pain again. Her numbers started coming back up. So we shifted back to what else do we have to do? And so she sticks with that protocol. More recently, she's been back in because it's starting to flare up again. This is over a 3-year process. We were almost 2 years with almost no symptoms. Starting to flare up again, we're working on her knees in her body again, because has anybody tried to put their child on an eating plan? Like we kind of got lucky because we knew this before we had kids, but it's still crazy hard to get your kids to eat something healthy, isn't it? And so, yeah, so she fell off of that, things went backwards, and you get back on it. So it's a journey, it's a process, it's not a treatment. There's never going to be a treatment, a cure, they don't exist. The only cure is us, okay? We're what heals our body. And so, how does this relate to ASD? Well, with autism, guess what? Neuroinflammation and neuroimmune abnormalities have now been established in ASD as the key factors in development and maintenance. Meaning, it's an inflammatory response in the body. And I'm going to walk you through how the brain, how the connection to the gut, how the whole process of how our body mediates inflammation is such a crucial factor when you're looking for therapies and protocols for your kids, and things that are going to help your children. So, first question to ask is, what is inflammation? Is inflammation good or bad? Raise your hand if you think it's good. Raise your hand if you think it's bad. Okay. Has anybody had a sprained ankle before? Or bruised? What did your ankle do? It got inflamed. If it didn't get inflamed, you would still have a sprained ankle. So is inflammation good or bad? Good. It's amazing. And this is the other thing. Over here, we feel like our body's messing up. Autoimmune, inflammation, all these things. Over here, we say our body never messes up and always does the right thing. That's kind of weird, right? Inflammation is actually a good thing. It's how we heal. Every night when we go to bed at night, our body cranks out a bunch of inflammation, starts healing things up. These are immune cells. That's our immune system, by the way, inflammation. It's healing the body. These tissues are healing. The brain's healing in these areas. But our body now is also supposed to get rid of that inflammation. There's mediators in our nervous system that has to flush the inflammation back out. What's happening with Zoe and autoimmune disease, what happens with ASD, is that inflammation isn't getting out. You follow me? So inflammation is good. We just have to make sure the body's functioning so it keeps moving through the process, so it heals and gets out. And so that's what we're going to talk about with the gut-brain connection more than anything, is how does that happen? So what mediates inflammation in our body? Can anybody guess what the one thing that controls everything in our body is? Right here between our two ears. Right? Our brain. Our brain controls everything. It tells our heart to beat. It allows you to listen right now. And if you know anyone who has had brain damage, you see that straightforward, right? And so inflammation has to be mediated by our nervous system. Our immune system and our nervous system aren't separate. The latest research, and they haven't even updated the books on these things, but our immune system and our nervous system are the same thing. Right? I know we have cardiologists, immunologists, all these different doctors over here, but the truth is it's one system. Our brain and our nervous system runs the immune response. Our gut is a huge part of that immune response. It's constantly happening, and all those things in between are part of it. So the main nerve that runs that is something called your vagus nerve. Now, do you find it's interesting that a good amount of you have heard of this before? 10 years ago, no one knew what that was. Why do you think we've all heard of this nerve now? Social media, right? Good point. It's because we're all stressed out of our brains. And we're just trying to find ways to get unstressed. So everybody's looking for the answer to how do we all handle stress. And so the vagus nerve is our body's response to stress. After we calm down, so simple concept. Has anybody been to the zoo before? Okay, so let's imagine you're taking your kids to the zoo. There's a white tiger exhibit. It's going to be amazing. We're really excited. We go, we're watching the zoo, we're watching the tiger, and all of a sudden the cage opens up. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? You're going to run, right? So hopefully you run faster than everybody else. But you're going to run as fast as you can out of that zoo. Your heart rate's going to go up. Your blood pressure, cholesterol actually is going to rise. Your thyroid's going to slow down. Your digestive system, does it work right now? Do you need to digest food right now? No. Our digestive system stops. Do you need to reproduce right now? No, it's not important. Right? We're not fighting viruses, bacteria, we're trying to survive. So everything goes into fight or flight response. That fight or flight response now is what allows us to survive. So all those things I said we've been told are bad, but those are all the things that keep us alive. Right? And so when we get out of the zoo and the tiger's gone, we're supposed to go back to, from way up here in fight or flight response, we're supposed to be made it back to here. Right? And our life should be like this. Stress, relax. Stress, relax. And this is called homeostasis. Has anyone heard that term? Remember, like high school, I think we learned homeostasis? Okay? It's the balance of our body. When your body's in homeostasis, there's no disease. Your body's healing. It's doing what it's supposed to do. So with our patients and with people with kids and everybody that comes into our office, our whole goal is how do we get your body back into this balance, back into homeostasis. Okay? And the vagus nerve is what controls that. It's what runs that. So when we have an inflammatory response, I'll use this as a great example. And sometimes this word gets shocked and moves back to conspiracies. Well, let's just talk vaccines. I'm not going to go through a whole like what causes what, but I'm going to tell you how they work. So when you get a vaccine, every one of us, it creates inflammation. That's how it works. That's how it creates antibodies. Immune response goes there, and antibodies are supposed to form, and that's how they say if it's successful or not. Now, if your vagus nerve is working properly and your brain connection to the whole body is working, that inflammation is going to talk to the vagus nerve through chemicals, tell your brain, hey, it's inflamed, we need to clean it out. The vagus nerve is going to come back around and it's going to flush out that inflammation. If there's still tissue damage, and more inflammation will come in until that process is completely healed. You follow me? What happens with autism is that signal might get there, but that's not coming back to flush it out. You follow me? The inflammation is not getting kicked back out. And so then we go into a spiral and the inflammation builds up in the brain. That's the same thing that happens with autoimmune disease. And that's why I talk with them very similarly. And that's what we work with a lot of autoimmune disease patients. And that's because, and I personally have one for 30 years with psoriasis. And that's because they're very similar in terms of it's just our immune response getting out of control. And we need to get it back under control by getting our nervous system back in balance. Okay? And so the vagus nerve is crucial. Remember, your nervous system controls everything. This is a good picture of it. This is all the stuff you feel. When you think of a pinched nerve, what do you think of? Pain? Ouch, okay. Pinched nerve hurts. That's only 9% of our nervous system over here. The majority of our nervous system is over here, and it's what runs our body and has zero feeling whatsoever. So if you pinch the nerve to the stomach, you don't know until you have a digestive problem. Make sense? That vagus nerve that I just talked about goes like this. It's the blue stuff. Okay? When we see digestive issues in our clinic, it's going to be either up in this area or up in this area. So let's talk the gut, and then we're going to come back around to how they connect. So we have our gut here, and you probably heard this. This has become very popular, that our gut is kind of like our second brain. Yeah, right? So the second brain, and in fact that it produces a lot of the neurotransmitter that our brain uses to make a lot of processes happen. And so it's really crucial that this is in good alignment with the thousands of different species of bacteria and viruses and, believe it or not, yeast that all are supposed to be in our GI tract working together in symbiosis. It's when they become out of balance that we start to see issues. So these bacteria release things that actually speak to that vagus nerve. And that vagus nerve now sends signals to the brain, and the brain sends signals back. It's this constant closed loop system. If there's any we call it disafferentation, but if there's a disconnect in that closed loop system, what do you think happens to the message the brain gets, or the brain sends back to the GI tract, which is the rest of the body? You'll see how there's a disconnect there? And so, have you ever heard that if you have a leaky gut, if you heal your leaky gut, then your pump problems are going to go away? Has anybody tried that before? Anybody bought a supplement? Raise your hand if you bought a leaky gut supplement before. Okay, good. All right, we've all done that. So, or we've at least thought about it. Some of you are maybe more disciplined than some of us, but I like to buy things that I think might work, or I like to try them out. So, leaky gut, cool. We can work on a leaky gut, but what if you have a nervous system problem? Are you still going to have a digestive issue no matter what supplement you take? Right. So they have to work together. So much of a lot of the natural health world has moved to just this, which I'm a huge fan of this. I'm a huge fan of working on the gut. But if you work on the gut, but you don't have a parasympathetic nervous system that's working properly, you're not digesting food. It's what tells you to produce stomach acid. It's what tells peristalsis to actually happen. Everything's just going to be sitting there, and the whole process is still going to happen. So this is very important, but the nervous system also has to be a part of it. It's a closed loop system. I'm going to give you all just a quick, here, take a picture of this. I'm actually going okay on time, but a quick picture of this. This is the leaky gut foods, some of the leaky gut foods, a good portion of them, versus the non-leaky gut foods, the things that can help heal leaky gut, along with the nervous system. And just for time's sake, I can go to whole nutrition talk on that, which would take forever. So this is your vagus nerve. We got its brain. You see how it goes to everything? You have two different vagus nerves. It's your cranial nerve 10. See how it starts right up here at the brain stem. Just remember, it starts right up in this area, goes down to the rest of the body. Is this a pretty important part of the nervous system? Yeah, they've actually shown physical. So in utero, when the baby's being formed, a lot of times a lot of the health issues with us getting rid of inflammation in the vagal nerve tone comes from that not forming properly. Whether it's from things like Tylenol use, medications, whether it's from high levels of stress or other chemicals that the mother was around, and now we start to see that not form. Or it can be a physical during birth. So C-sections, vacuums, forceps, those are all related back to vagal nerve damage. It's right there in the neck. And this is 80-20 pounds of pressure going into a baby's spine when they're being pulled out of the early canal. So it can be very stressful. And now that vagus nerve doesn't work, now we start to introduce all these environmental toxins, and they're not flushing out the inflammation. Okay, so we talked about the fight or flight. Remember, heart rate, blood pressure, all that going up versus digest, relax. So your parasympathetic versus your sympathetic nervous system. Fight or flight versus parasympathetics. We get thumbs up if we're still tracking. Okay. Good, I gotta. All right, cool. So when you're stuck in a fight or flight response for a period of time, this is what happens. Okay, anybody relate to this right here? Okay, digestive issues, focus, kind of all over the place, neurodevelopmental disorders over here. When it stays there too long, it turns into this. That's when our parasympathetics just aren't working at all either. That's the crash zone. This is where a lot, now just look at these two. Would you say this is most of America?
Yeah.
It really is. Like, this is just, we're all stuck in this constant fight or flight response, and that's why balancing out the nervous system is so important. So what do? This is what we do in our clinic for gut-brain connection. This is what we do to help evaluate and help the process along. And this is just the main stuff we focus on. Number one, I would love to remove controllable stressors. Stressors are necessary. We have gravity. Is that a stressor? What would happen to us if we didn't have gravity? Just melt away. We wouldn't have any idea. We need stress. It's actually a good thing. But removing the controllable ones, meaning, this is why I love nutrition. Nutrition, has everybody heard nutrition can heal you? Food can heal you? Food can't heal you. You can heal you. Food gives you the nutrients and minerals you need for your body to work to heal itself, right? So, when you think of nutrition, number one first thought is this going to give me nutrients and minerals that I need? Does Chick-fil-A give us nutrients and minerals that we need? I hope they're not sponsored. I don't say McDonald's anymore because it seems like everybody's just the Chick-fil-A if you look at their lines. But it doesn't give us what we need. The second question is, does it create a lot of stress on my body? Isn't that a different way to look at nutrition? Does it give me what I need? Is it going to create stress on my body? Those are the two simple questions you can ask. So I love nutrition in this area because you can make a big difference in the stress response in somebody's gut by changing the foods they're eating, like he said with milk. There's a lot of food allergies, a lot of food sensitivities, gluten, dairy, all those things. Gluten, I'll tell you right now, you go home, if your kids eat gluten still, I know it's not easy, but taking that out should be your number one step. It creates gut inflammation, it keeps brain inflammation. I'll be here at the end for questions just because of time, but I'll hang out for extra questions. Yeah, it inflames your brain, it inflames our gut, for everybody. Sensitivity, knowing it or not, it's doing that to all of us. So it's a quick, easy one, plus cereal grains. You know, in 2008, they started spraying glyphosate on our cereal grains at the end of the life cycle. Anybody hear that before?
Yeah.
So they used to just spray the soil and the weeds, right? Then they started spraying the entire grain so that it'll dry out and dehydrate so they can get a good crop, so it doesn't mildew. And you start seeing celiac disease, all these neurodevelopmental disorders just skyrocket because of that. So any cereal grain needs to be organic, but all gluten are removed. Chiropractic care, I'll talk a little bit about that and how amazing that is for the nervous system and balancing this gut-brain connection. Developmental transcranial photomodulation. Anybody say that real fast? Infrared laser, that's what we call it. But that's the fancy name for it. We use infrared laser on the brain to help with certain developmental, what do they call those? Primitive reflexes, help break primitive reflexes. Also, it brings nutrients and oxygen and blood flow to the brain, helps with inflammation. I'll talk a little bit about that. Whole body vibration therapy, super effective for stimulating the vagus nerve. Gut testing, nutritional protocols, lifestyle protocols for healing. And then finally, at home parasympathetic work. Simple stuff like this. Okay, this is another good picture screen for you. Right, social relationships is parasympathetic work. Cold therapy. Has anybody done cold plunging? Raise your hand for cold plunger. I'm not right. Sorry. Good. That was one of those things I bought, used once. So cold therapy is very effective for calming the nervous system, reducing EMFs and screen time. If you have internet in your house, which we all do most likely, put a timer on it. 11 p.m. the timer turns off. We expect up to 5 a.m. Great, easy way to take stress off you and your family's cells all night long. Christmas tree timer, you can get it for Lowe's. That must be important. I put that twice. Reduce screen time. Okay, the neurological damage that comes from LED lights constantly going into our eyes. Now, I also understand that we need a break. And what's the best way to get a break with your parent? I mean, let's be honest. What do y'all do? I don't do it. I never do it, but we all do. It's a great time. Like, so we just have to be very conscious of it and aware of it. Like that, it is, especially before bed. Things like that can be super damaging, and taking it out can make a big difference. So you see all these different things in there that you can add at home, and different techniques you can use as well. So the photobiomodulation is essentially red laser, infrared laser that we use in certain areas of the brain, whether it's temporal, parietal, frontal, cerebellum. And we have certain protocols for different issues, but also we do the testing to see what primitive reflexes need to be tested or need to be worked on. And we go through it, and it increases blood flow, decreases inflammation. That's the biggest one. It decreases inflammation in the brain, helps strengthen the mitochondria, increases antioxidants, increases synaptogenesis, which is where your nerves come together, right, and work properly. And I would say between chiropractic and this, we've seen the biggest improvements with ASD, but just with people in general. ADD, ADHD, brain fog, focus, memory has been a big one. This is an example of gut testing. Originally, if you've ever done a gut test, a stool test before, GI mapping tests are becoming really popular. But this is telling us, okay, what kind of bacterial overgrowth? This is a child with autism. Okay, they have 3-4 bacterial overgrowths they're developing, some of them related to autoimmune disease. Elastase is really low, meaning their pancreas isn't working to break down carbohydrates, steatocrit, which is fat in the stool, so their gallbladder's not doing very well right now. We have this, secretory IgA levels are at an all-time low right here. That is their immune system. That's their immune response to the gut. Would that be a good thing to know about your child?
Yeah.
Yeah, because now we can actually support it with things like colostrum and things like bone broth and things that help build it back up. H. pylori, so it just gives us a good idea. It also tells us what the microbiome looks like, along with the whole microbiome in that aspect. It tells us if there's parasites, if there's yeast overgrowth. Big fan of the stool test. We use this with almost all autoimmune patients. With patients with autism, we work at all different levels. Some want to dive in and do all this stuff. Some just want to do chiropractic here. But you get a really good result when you put those things together because it's a gut and a brain connection. I don't ever just do this. In fact, I've had patients that want to just do this, and I talk them into doing the whole thing, and then they don't ever get to this part because it took too long to get the test back, and all we did with the other part, we got all the results. So it's crucial that we have the whole connection. So here's how it works. Gut-brain healing action plan number 1, you have to work on the nervous system first. Everything you do, when you go to a therapist, anybody you go to, your question should be number 1, is this going to reduce stress on my child's nervous system? And I don't mean like speech therapy, there's stress that helps build. So follow me here. I mean like, is it going to damage it like chemicals? Is it going to increase stress on my child's nervous system? Number 1. Is it going to reduce stress in general? And finally, is it going to strengthen the nervous system? And then finally, is it going to retrain the brain? So everything should be about, see how I'm going all the nervous system? Everything is about how do we retrain the brain, how do we strengthen the nervous system. If you do that, a lot of the gut problems disappear because they came from that in the first place. And they're a lot easier to actually start to heal. Then, so I went from here, not to digestion, we went from here to, we call it power and fuel. If someone's eating out all the time, fast food and gluten every day, we don't need to work on the gut yet. You know what we need to work on? The stress on the gut. We gotta fix that first. Because what's the point of doing all the testing and all this work when we take a bunch of supplements when this is still here? So that's really important. We address that first. Then we start working on the heal and seal, start working on really restoring the GI tract. And then finally, detox. Has anybody done a detox or thought about doing a detox for them and their children? Right? It was really popular in the ASD world. It's kind of take a step back from it. And I think it's because people were doing this first, and the body wasn't processing that. It's just flushing around in the body, and you see all these symptoms go crazy. So it's a very important part of it, but it's typically not the first step. This is Chase. I think he's actually a speech therapist here today. This is my buddy Chase. When he came in, he was using the restroom about twice a week. Okay? And it was affecting his sleep, it was affecting his learning. You know what's cool about this stuff we get to do is along with speech therapy, along with occupational therapy, along with, I can't even keep up with all therapies, there's a million of them, they're all really, really beneficial. What we do helps enhance all those. Okay, because we're working with the nervous system, so his ability now to learn and work with speech therapy has gone way up. He started getting chiropractic care, getting adjusted, and at this point, he goes every single day. He comes in once a week. He's been doing that for about 3 years. And you see that sounds like a lot. Well, he's got a lot going on in his body. You know what I mean? It supports him to be able to come in once a week, and it keeps making sure he's using the restroom. And when he doesn't come in regularly, that comes back. So that's one of the things he has to do. This was his x-ray of his neck. You know much about a neck, you should have a curve in your neck. Anybody seen that before? So his, for the most part, straight up and down. This was after a few months of care. Curvature back in. Remember the vagus nerve? Remember that was? Right there. That's a stressed nervous system. It's the spinal cord literally being stretched and pulled right there. Brainstem gets pulled into this. So we adjust, but we also do the therapies to try to get the structure back in the spine. And this was his gut on his first visit. See all these bubbles? So you can actually kind of see what's happening in the GI tract as well. So chiropractic care, lots of studies here, but kind of the big picture, decreased heart rate variability and increased total power from the HRV. Does anyone know what HRV is? Heart rate variability. Heart rate variability. Look into heart rate variability. It's a great way to tell how strong your vagus nerve is and how healthy that is. It's also a great way to tell how resilient you or your family is to stress. It's one of the main indicators of longevity. Is heart rate variability. Most of those little risk things we got, they will, I know mine's only $20, but y'all might have one of those risk things that tells you all your body stuff. HRV's on there. And HRV's on a lot of those. That's a great thing to track regularly. But with chiropractic, it creates a healthy autonomic nervous system balance after correction of vertebral subluxation. Has anybody heard that term, vertebral subluxation? Okay, anybody say it fast? Vertebral subluxation? Okay, so essentially, essentially, the subluxation is where your spine isn't moving properly, and it creates a neurological discommunication, where I say disapprobation. When this doesn't move, 90% of the stimulation to our brain comes from our spine moving. Raise your hand if you ever sat at the computer for 45 minutes and you're tired. Now, you walk around the block, how do you feel? You feel a whole lot better. So our spinal movement is actually how our brain operates. Have you ever seen your kids do this?
Yes.
You know why they're doing this? They're trying to pump cerebral spinal fluid. You have a cerebral spinal fluid pump right here and right here in your sacrum and your occiput and your upper part of your neck here, and that allows cerebral spinal fluid to flow. Isn't that cool? It's innate. Our body is always trying to it's always trying to adapt, it's always trying to survive. When we adjust, we allow that pump to start flowing again, and you'll see that shift. This is Timmy. He's been with me for a long time. One of my favorite things about Timmy is when he first came in, my favorite things that changed with Timmy is when he first came in, sensitivity to hearing was crazy. Like he had to come in off hours, making sure everything off in the office, dim the lights, for him not to go just oversensitive with everything. When his mom would talk on the phone, he would start screaming and yelling, she'd have to go in the other room. Within a couple of weeks of getting his atlas right up here adjusted. Now with ASD, has anybody been to a chiropractor? Have you had this whole part of your spine adjusted? Okay, we don't really touch that because that's your sympathetics. Okay, now with some people we do, with ASD, we adjust here and we work here. We're trying to stimulate as much parasympathetic nervous system response as possible. And so with Timmy, within a couple of weeks, his mom came in and said, "Oh my gosh, but Timmy didn't yell at me when I was on the phone." That seems like a small thing, but that's huge. That means he's not sensitive anymore. And he comes into the normal shift where we have probably like 20 people walking around. He's cool. He high-fives people. It's just really cool. But again, speech therapy, all those other things got better once he started getting chiropractic care. Okay, and this was his first x-ray. You can see how straight it is. Now we start to get some of the curvature back in. Inside of the opening, this is that vagus nerve. See how there's no space there? Starting to get some space. Okay. This is Anna. Anna's a patient with crazy stomach aches, focus, poor sleep. Came in a month ago. This is literally a month ago. This was this week when we redid her x-rays. Stomach problems are gone. She's sleeping through the night and her focus is starting to come back. It's really, when we start to balance the nervous system, the body starts to heal itself. Same thing, ADD, ADHD with Zoe. This is her sister. That was 1 month ago. That was last week when we took her x-rays. Her ADHD problems are calming down. She just came off, after 2 weeks, she came off the Adderall. Her mom didn't want her to be on it. I didn't tell her to come off of it. I don't know if that was the right decision or not. That's their family, but she came off that and her body, her focus is still there. Pretty cool. And so I also like it because we can see kind of before and after changes, not just feeling like there's change. Okay, so some of the research on chiropractic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Effects of chiropractic care on heart rate variability and pain in multi-site clinical stuff. Oh, that's the same one, shit, sorry. Tyler Carr, this power going back and forth. Vertebral subluxation is a misalignment or dysfunction of the spinal column which negatively affects the neurophysiology, physiological function. And these are the things it creates. Okay, that's normal. That's where you see a shift. You're going to see decrease in neuroplasticity. You're going to see decreased brainstem and blood flow. You're going to see increased inflammation, less cerebral spinal fluid flow. And when we start to move this, the fluid can now move back through. Okay, cervical adjustments, where I said we just focus up here. And the reason we focus up here and down here is that's where the vagus nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system lies. Cervical adjustments may result in a parasympathetic response, whereas thoracic adjustments actually stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. Upper cervical adjustments enhance dominance of parasympathetics. A greater parasympathetic response was found when stimulation was done into the cervical and lumbar region. Okay, this is Charlie. So Charlie, when she came in, she was pooping maybe once a week. And her parents, when she first brought her in the week before she had been at the ER, and this is her Google review, I put it up there. She had been at the ER and they had to flush her out. Okay, 8 years old, living on Maalox, being flushed out. And I'm sharing these stories with you. She's not in the base team, but I'm sharing her story with you because with autism, have you noticed some digestive problems? Yeah. And it just shows how the nervous system can balance out. When we started, she got her first adjustment, she pooped that evening. And this is gross, but she pooped that evening, and she's pooped every day since. Am I cool? Okay, so what causes that? That's the biggest question. So if the subluxation is a thing, what causes it? It's stress. It's physical, chemical, and emotional stress. It's really that simple, right? Physical stresses of life, which for kids, what's the biggest physical stress a child goes through? Birth. We all go through it. But in America, do we do it a little bit different? Only ones that go against gravity. Only animal that goes against gravity. Right? We go against gravity. We're cutting, we're twisting, we're pulling. And so with the research, this is an osteopathic journal, 90% had suffered birth trauma and strain of the neck and cranium. 10% had severe damage. This is from a developmental medical child neurology. The birth process, even under optimal control condition, is a potential traumatic crippling event due to spinal cord and brainstem. Injuries occur during this process, but they go undetected because no one's checking for them. Remember that vagus nerve right here? Physical damage can actually happen in this part in the birthing process. Our job is to help restore that vagal nerve response so the gut can work. And so chiropractic is really cool because it's not about a treatment. We're not over here treating any symptoms. We're over here saying, what can we do to strengthen the nervous system in the body so it has the optimal ability to heal itself? And everything comes back to that. The heating plan comes back to that. The whatever ancillary therapies we do comes back to that. The chiropractic plan goes back to that. And these are the things you actually see under chiropractic care. The number one thing we see is better digestion, better sleep, better focus. Those are the first things you start to see. Over time, you start to see the immune response get better and less getting sick all the time. And one of my favorite things that we get to see in our office is reproductive hormones changing. This last month, I adjusted 4 newborn babies. They were all born in our office, not in our office, but like from people that come to our office. I know that, don't come to my office for that, please. All born from our office, they all came to us to get pregnant. Meaning they had tried the fertility, they had tried all these other areas, and they got pregnant, and we just got to adjust the baby this last month. So, pretty cool. So just wrap around again, this is the flow that we want to process there. Okay? So, from everything I said today, if something I said clicked with you and you want to check us out and have your child evaluated more in depth through this process that we do, I want to give you the chance to do that. Normally coming in and during our, we call it a functional health consult. It's our normal visits. A functional health consult, it is for patients all over the world. That normally, the whole process is about $350 plus x-rays plus that. It gets pretty expensive. I talked to Jonathan, we came up with a reduced cost for you guys if that's something you want for your family. For consult, exam, x-rays, full first evaluation, evaluating any past testing, I have to send that in before you come in hopefully. And recommending any testing that might need to be done. We're doing that for just $75. Okay, so kind of nominal fee, get to know you visit, see if there's possibilities, see if we're a good fit, and then do a game plan action from that, and then we go from there. Okay, they'll be out front if anybody wants to connect with them. But thank you guys. I'll hang out up front for anyone that has individual questions. And thank you guys for coming today.